What's going on, guys? It's Adam P, and welcome back to more Newcastle United news. It is a busy time to be a Newcastle United fan. Of course, our next game is against Arsenal on Sunday at St James's Park. Huge game for us personally this season. Of course, we've dropped an unbelievable amount of points already for the lack of goals, and Arsenal, currently the best defensive team in the Premier League, taking on, in my opinion, the second best defensive team in the Premier League. I think Newcastle's defence has been top drawer this season, and it's going to be a match of two teams cancelling each other out. But which one will break the deadlock if someone breaks the deadlock? Will it be us? Will we do it again against Mikel Arteta? Already, by the way, before we even talked about the Arsenal game, Mikel Arteta's already going on about footballs in his press conference today. It must be the ball, Mikel. It must be the ball. But we'll get into that in just a moment. Of course, on a personal level, as soon as the Arsenal game is done, I am making the trip over to Belgium. We're going to do it straight away for the SG Union game on Wednesday. The return of the overnight stay vlogs will be on the channel, so make sure you get down there, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of the Champions League content this season. I will be at every single match, so make sure you are subscribed here so you don't miss out on any of Newcastle United's Champions League content, because it's going to be a mental time to say the least, especially Marseille. I'm going to be bricking it for Marseille, but we'll be there. We will be there, and it'll be certainly an experience to say the least. I wanted to start this video off by talking about Bradford City. We just played a CARABAO Cup game at St James's Park. Already, we are in the last 60. I can't believe I'm saying it. After one game, we are now in the last 16. And we are taking on Tottenham again at St James's Park. They must be terrified as Tottenham fans. They must have some serious PTSD after the last few years at St James's Park, because we pumped them every single season, and now they have to come up here midweek, the worst time you could possibly play Newcastle at St James's Park. They have to do that in a League Cup match, and believe it or not, since the takeover, Tottenham is the final Big Six club that has not lost to Newcastle United in the Carabao Cup. Look at the list of teams we have won against in the past 3 years. Bear in mind, our first season with the takeover, we weren't even in the Carabao Cup. Steve Bruce got us knocked out against Burnley before Eddie Howe was even appointed manager. So he's only had 3 years in the competition. Look at the amount of teams we've won against. It's an astonishing record, and quite an underlooked record in my opinion. Look at that list. It is astonishingly good. And even teams in there like Bournemouth, Palace, these sort of teams we don't beat in the Premier League, we still manage to beat them in the Cup. And it's a surreal record when Newcastle, despite having Champions League football this season, despite the lack of goals this season, still have to be one of the favourites to win the Carabao Cup again. They'll be up there. And if you get past Tottenham, one match and then you're in a semi-final. That's how close the competition already is. It's a winnable competition. It won't be easy, but it's winnable. Newcastle have done it before. They can do it again. It's an opportunity for them this season to continue to write history. Can Eddie Howe do it? Time will tell against Tottenham, but I wanted to say, fair play at the War Flags, by the way, because they've actually donated the Alexandra banner to Bradford City, of course. They're fortunate enough where Alexander is the surname of their manager, so there's an opportunity for Graham Alexander to have a decoration and display form at Bradford City, where we've got unused decorations. We're never going to have the Isak banners up ever again at this football club. So it's a case where Bradford City, there you are, have the banner, enjoy it, use it for your manager, and use it. And it's essentially recycling and just donating to a club that will benefit a lot from the displays, and a club that's done quite well in terms of fan support. I thought they were excellent in St James's Park. 5,000 away fans went there midweek. They spent hard-earned money to be there, and they just supported the team and gave Bradford City an edge in the game. And while quality, of course, was the main decisive factor that got Newcastle quite a fairly comfortable game against Bradford, you got to respect that support though. League One level, they've got a chance. They beat good teams already this season. That support stays with them. They've got a chance of getting promoted again. So we'll see what happens. Fair play to them. I just want to start this video off with a nice message going through War Flags and the fact that they donated the Alexander Isak displays to Bradford City supporters. In the second half of this video, I'm going to show you a live interview that I did yesterday, where we'll talk a lot more about the behind the scenes in the cup games. But of course, I wanted to direct the first half of this video to get for more news. Amanda Staveley has actually responded to Newcastle United fans today. If you remember, from a high performance podcast with Jake Humphries. Now, I don't want to keep banging on about Amanda because you've got to remember she is no longer a part of Newcastle United. For me, I always like to look forward, and while of course I respect history and I respect what people like Amanda have done because she's a key catalyst and a main reason why we had the public investment fund takeover in the first place. I wanted to showcase this message anyway because I know a lot of you guys are quite fond of her. She's quite fond of the football club herself, and it's a real lovely connection where Amanda just went, well, I wish I could reply to all yours. I can't, unfortunately. I just wanted to say thank you so much for your support. I felt like listening to her comments and just listening to her support and dedication towards the football club. She deserves the accolade. She deserves the support from Newcastle fans because she was brilliant when she was here. Now, I was quite close, I would say, to the women's team when she first came with the football because I was covering them quite a lot. And while I was doing it unofficially, it's just me recording YouTube videos. I kind of knew and had all the murmurings of what Amanda was doing behind the scenes. Now, I'll give you a story, right? Since Amanda's not part of Newcastle United anymore, I will actually tell you a story now. I remember once, so the women's team got promoted from the 4th tier to the 3rd tier. Of course, the girls are out in town celebrating, and at the time, it wasn't at the time, it was still a part-time club, so the girls were allowed to go on holiday, they were allowed to drink alcohol, they didn't have any strict diets, they could basically do whatever they want outside Newcastle because they weren't contracted players, they didn't get paid at all at the time, and it was almost kind of like girls turning up, having a laugh, doing whatever. And I remember Amanda was not there at the celebration night because she was busy, but actually put like serious money behind the bar. So everyone, the staff members, all the players should get drinks. I'm not going to tell you the exact amount, but it's mental money basically what you put behind the bar for the girls. And even things like that, that's never going to get forecast. That's never going to be taught to any journalist. It's never going to be passed on the news. And there's hundreds of stories like that, which is just nice, genuine behind the scenes. And it's not played up to the cameras. You could argue maybe Amanda's a bit of a PR merchant. She's doing this for Saudi Arabia. She's doing it to the camera. She's not. Honestly, she's not. She's a genuine person. She actually gave a crap about the girl. She gave a crap about Newcastle United. You see behind the scenes that she was down to earth and actually acted like an owner did. And I wanted to tell you a bit of a story about her there because she's lovely. I'm not going to go into any more details than that, but she was someone that was quite hands-on with the women's team. And I think even since she's left now, they hadn't had a best of start this season despite an unbelievable level of investment. And maybe that's a key part that's missing for them. Now, going back on topic to the men's team and back to St James's Park, Craig Hope put updates out about a new stadium saying that they're currently in the process of making sure the public investment fund need to figure out how the finances are going to go into a new stadium. So the PIF said we're going to pay for half of the stadium. That's it. The finances have to be elsewhere as a loan coming into the football club. And just to make the obvious point, this is normal. It's not the public investment fund's skin. They're multi-billionaires. Like, they are not skin at all. It's not a player taking on the mick or doing anything like that. Daniel Levy did this at Tottenham. It's quite a common practice for football stadiums where ownerships want to spend as little money as possible on a stadium. So half the money, PIF on a new St James's Park, and half the money will have to be elsewhere going to the football stadium. Unsure of whether or not this is actually the delay, and if this is the problem that is preventing Newcastle United from having this new stadium announced, because in my opinion, I'm a bit puzzled with the lack of updates. I'm not saying there should be a new stadium announcement already, but I feel like Newcastle's been silent for far too long. I feel like there should be an update or a little statement saying that this is what's currently happening. We'll let you know in due time of an announcement of what's going to happen next. I think the fact it's been silent, and bearing in mind it was supposed to be an announcement around June time anyway, and you're now talking going into October and there's still nothing being said. I'm a bit puzzled of why there hasn't been an update. But this is what's being said. That's what's currently the situation. Unsure when that announcement will be. I don't think it's anything concerning there. It just seems to be someone that's kind of dragging on. And I feel like fans need clarity and need transparency of what's going to happen next, because that's what you want is for people to be a bit scared or a bit worried. They don't know what's going on. So hopefully we'll get an update about that. Speaking of Craig Hope, he's also confirmed that Johan Wissa's current situation. Newcastle has appealed to FIFA. The idea being is that the fact that Wissa's been on international duty and he's picked up an injury which is more than 1 month. Now, because it's a long-term injury, Newcastle was allowed to appeal for compensation. You have to look on our point of view, it's about £55 million on a striker who's going to be in AFCON on January anyway. He hasn't even trained with Newcastle yet, and the guy's already injured because he went out on duty before making his debut for Newcastle. there's not much we can do about that. So I feel that compensation is fair. I've seen some Newcastle fans suggesting maybe a petty thing to appeal to FIFA. I definitely don't think it is. I think it's a massive factor why Newcastle has not been scoring goals this season, which you could argue on a competitive basis has prevented Newcastle points this season and could potentially prevent us trophies if we go out the cup because of that. If we lose games in the Champions League, could prevent a knockout phase qualification. So again, looking into that, I think it's fair to appeal for, and hopefully Newcastle is able to get a decent amount of compensation for it. That's about it in terms of Newcastle United news. Now, I wanted to show you an exclusive interview which I did yesterday with a sports media company called Sporty News. It's my first time being presented live on air with them. It was an opportunity for, I guess, me to work with, believe it or not, an African sports media company. It's like a bit of an unorthodox company to ask me to come on, but I guess you could argue I'm Mr. Worldwide now for an opportunity like that. But all joking aside, thank you so much for your support, and I wanted to show you the interview. And what I would say on a personal level, it's probably one of the better interviews that I've actually conducted, and that was because they didn't just have you on and kick you off straight away. Now, I've done quite a few during my years on YouTube, and I'll give you an example. I done one of the Premier League before, and I have you on for like literally 1 minute, ask you 1 or 2 questions, kick you off, next fan's on. Whereas this one had me on for a decent amount of time, asked a bunch of questions, and they didn't just have loads of people on, they actually kind of highlighted certain topics and went into detail. And I wanted to show you, I guess, my personal comments on Newcastle United coming out from the Bradford City game, and I asked a lot of questions about the future of Newcastle United as well, my personal expectations and what I think the club would do next. So yeah, hopefully you enjoy it. Appreciate you guys watching as always. If anyone here ever wants me to get involved or anything like that, please do contact me on any of my email pages or any of my personal business accounts. Feel free to do that. Appreciate your support as always. Take care, and we will see you all in the next one.
Well, on that, I want to introduce the other side. We've heard the dugout. I want to hear from the stands. We're going to introduce Adam Pearson, who's a content creator for all things Newcastle United Football Club. Adam, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be able to chat about what was, in our point of view, quite a good result and a lot of goals as well yesterday at St James's Park.
Are you relieved? I mean, it feels like the wrong word to use, but I think it's been a difficult start to the season. We talked about the Isak controversy, I think is fair to say. Do you think Eddie Howe has what it takes to bring this team back in the right direction?
Well, definitely. I think you've got to look at the history of Newcastle since the takeover and look at what this team has already been able to achieve in this competition. There's no denying it at all. Of course, the Alexander Isak exit has been quite a lot for Newcastle to deal with. You went from having Isak up front to Nick Rotemar, who are 2 completely different strikers. And Newcastle, you've seen it earlier this season in the Premier League. You only scored in 2 of your 5 opening games. So for us, it was important yesterday, yes, to have a good result against Bradford City, but also just to gain some confidence ahead of what's going to be a very busy week coming up. We've got Arsenal on Sunday. We're back in the Champions League next week. We have to score some goals. That's the biggest thing for Newcastle this season. But to see Newcastle do well against Bradford yesterday, real promising signs. I'm looking forward to seeing how we can do against Arsenal.
I mean, we were just speaking about Newcastle in terms of their performance so far, but how significant was that result? And would you think that would give the team more confidence? Because we've seen where they struggled a bit when it comes on to that fluency in attack.
Well, certainly, yeah. I think especially for Muddy Masura, got 2 goals yesterday. He's still quite a young player and someone that hasn't had that opportunity this season. Even when we haven't been playing as striker, it's either been Anthony Gordon up front or been trying to integrate someone else up there. So to see Osula get a couple of goals is great. I think especially in Newcastle's attacking output, just to see your likes of Gordon out wide, Alanga out wide, just being able to see Newcastle create a lot more chances definitely gives the team confidence in what's going to be a tough season. But as you've seen already with Newcastle in previous seasons, with the players we've certainly got the capabilities of being able to do well. Yes, we've lost a huge player across the summer, but that one player is not going to dictate how the team's going to do this season. So it's up to us now. We deal with it. We signed some fantastic players, especially when Johan Wissa comes back from his injury. I feel like he's going to be a key part to Newcastle's attack, and then we'll score a lot more goals.
Well, Adam, I want to ask you about the Carabao Cup, because I think maybe we're being unfair to say all Premier League sides view it as maybe one of their lower priorities. But of course, Newcastle did win it last season. Do you think this is a chance for Eddie Howe to bring some success as well? Obviously, retain the title, but would you rather see him go for that or concentrate on what is arguably more important, the Premier League and the Champions League?
Well, in terms of Newcastle United, I think you've got to look at the evidence yesterday. Even when you look at the bench and while we have rotated the starting 11, we've still got all of our best players there, so it's clearly still a main priority for Newcastle. Of course, we are the cup holders, and when you look at the Carabao Cup, it may be deemed a lesser trophy for some of your bigger clubs, but across the last 12 years, there's only been Chelsea, City, Liverpool, and Manchester United that's even won the competition, so it's still massive clubs that are winning it every single year. And Newcastle have done well last season. We beat a huge amount of teams last year that have all won it before, and it's a chance again this season. Tottenham, in my opinion, at St James Park is a winnable game, especially in around the 16. It would give us some confidence. We can move on, and while of course we do have to deal with all the competitions this season, there's nothing stopping Newcastle from potentially being up there again. I think it is realistic that Newcastle could push and potentially try and win the Carabao Cup. I don't think there's anything stopping us in terms of performances. You just have to start scoring goals, but if we can do that, there's nothing stopping Newcastle from achieving success this season.
Adam, talking about scoring goals, I want to ask you, looking ahead to Arsenal this weekend. Obviously, we saw a couple of weeks back against Barcelona now. Voltemade didn't start in that match, and there were questions for Eddie Howe, why not? But if it were up to you going up against Arsenal now this weekend, who would your starting front three be with the likes of, obviously, Voltemade and Murphy? Do you start Elanga? Sula's been playing well in the past two matches. What would your ideal front three look like?
Well, it's going to have to be Nick Waltemard up front. It's either going to be him or Anthony Gordon up front. It's not going to be Willie Musiala coming in. I think Anthony Gordon is so much better on the left-hand side, so I would personally start Gordon on the left. I would have Murphy over Elanga on the right-hand side. I'm a big fan of Murphy's contributions, and especially with him crossing the ball into Nick Waltemard. That would be my personal front three against Arsenal.
Well, Adam, I know this is a long season, and I don't want to ask you for too much, but for you, this season, what is a successful season for Newcastle in terms of maybe Premier League finish, Champions League? Where would you accept come May at the end of the season?
Well, I feel like with the additional Champions League campaign, it's unrealistic to suggest that Newcastle would finish in the top five again to regain Champions League qualification. For me, where Newcastle is now, I feel like we do have to qualify for European competition in the league. So whether that be top seven or top eight based on UEFA structure, I feel like Newcastle does need to be getting European football on a seasonal basis now. As for competitions, of course, the Champions League, I would love to see us get into the knockout phase. Anything past that, it depends on how you play and when you play these teams. But I feel like, personally, as a fan, Newcastle does need to try and compete in the Champions League. Hopefully, get to a knockout phase, and then we'll take it from there. I would love to be back at Wembley on a personal level. I would love to see us in a cup final or the FA Cup semi-final. So if we can get to either of those, I would be buzzing this season. But on a personal level in the Premier League, we just need European qualification. I'm not overly fussed on which European competition it is, though.
Well, hopefully, come the end of the season, Adam, you'll be a happy Magpie fan and you won't be wanting Eddie Howe out. But thank you very much for joining us, and I'm sure we'll speak to you very soon.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.